Hey, everybody. Welcome into lucky episode number 13 of Awakening the Ordinary. My name is Daniel Clower, and boy, oh boy, have I got some news for you this week. So, this week's episode, we are going to be diving into some sad news. President Trump has been betrayed by his dearest and closest ally, President Putin. Next, we're going to be talking about the snip, snap of tariffs. You have no idea the strain that takes on an economy. Then we're going to be talking about some juicier topics. We're going to be diving into some Gossip Girl talk about Elon Musk, Stephen Miller, and what his tenure at Doge really meant for the American people. Then finally, at the end of the episode, I'm going to be diving into some more social or cultural issues. Separates Trump supporters from everybody else in the entire world. But first, I have to talk about the most important news of the week, which is obviously Miss Rachel releasing her toilet time training video. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. The first thing I want to talk about is Taco Tuesday. A very brave and maybe foolish reporter brought to the attention of Mr. Trump a new nickname that he has earned among financiers and market traders in general. See, they refer to this strategy, or maybe lack thereof, that President Trump has shown with these tariffs as the taco strategy, and it stands for Trump always chickens out. And you know what? I'm actually going to include a link here to what happened in that interview. So take a look.
Mr. President, Wall Street analysts have coined a new term called the taco trade. They're saying Trump always chickens out on your tariff threats, and that's why markets are higher this week. What's your response to that?
I kick out?
Chicken out.
Oh, isn't that nice? Chicken out. I've never heard that. You mean because I reduced China from 145% that I set down to 100 and then down to another number? And I said you have to open up your whole country. And because I gave the European Union a 50% tax tariff, and they called up and they said, please, let's meet right now. Please, let's meet right now. And I said, okay, I'll give you till July 9. I actually asked them, I said, what's the date? Because they weren't willing to meet. And after I did what I did, they said, we'll meet anytime you want. And we have an end date of July 9th. You call that chickening out? Because we have $14 trillion now invested, committed to investing when Biden didn't have practically anything. This country was dying. You know, we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. I went to Saudi Arabia. The king told me, he said, we have the hottest country in the world right now. 6 months ago, this country was stone cold dead. We had a dead country. We had a country people didn't think it was going to survive, and you ask a nasty question like that. It's called negotiation. You set a number. And if you go down, if I set a number at a ridiculous high number and I go down a little bit, they want me to hold that number, 145% tariff. Even I said, man, that really got up. You know how it got? Because of fentanyl and many other things, and you added it up. I said, where are we now? We're at 145%. I said, whoa, that's high. That's high. They were doing no business whatsoever, and they were having a lot of problems. We were very nice to China. I don't know if they're going to be nice to us, but we were very nice to China. And in many ways, I think we really helped China tremendously because, they were having great difficulty because we were basically going cold turkey with China. We were doing no business because of the tariff, because it was so high. But I knew that. But don't ever say what you said. That's a nasty question. Go ahead. To me, that's the nastiest question. Wait a minute. Wait.
Yeah, so that didn't go well. I don't think that Trump is used to people turning the whole cute nickname strategy against him. He, ever since his first campaign back in 2015, was well known for coming up with these adorable nicknames for all of his political opponents, like Lil Marco Rubio, who is now working for him, or, for example, Sleepy Joe Biden. Well, now our president has his very own new nickname, El Grande Taco. See, the issue with these tariffs is Trump will talk a big talk about implementing these tariffs and how no matter what, he's not going to be backing down, and these are so good for the economy, and they're going to teach countries to respect us. And then after the market inevitably crashes and some of his rich friends get in his ear about how bad this is for the economy and specifically for their wallets, he inevitably backs off. And he's done it every single time. He'll announce huge tariffs, the market crashes, he backs off, and then they do or say something that insults him, so he brings the tariffs back. But actually, it's only for a second because, no, wait, he calls them off again. Or he raises them to 145%, and then shipments show up empty, and then, oh, it's back down to 30% again. I mean, it really is embarrassing. That's why the market has been so remarkably stable, even with all of the uncertainty going on. I mean, don't get me wrong, it went through some really horrible crashes, and plenty of small businesses have faced the brunt of these tariffs and had to close down. It's really sad. I mean, you can do a quick search and find stories, heartbreaking stories from people who poured their lives into their businesses for years and years and years. And then all of a sudden, because Trump decided that for 2 months, we were going to have these outrageous, untenable tariffs on China. Well, they had to close down. They had to fire all of their employees. They had to sell everything they owned because they were in the red. So small businesses have suffered, but the market in general, while it has dipped, it hasn't absolutely tanked like most economic experts would think. And that, it turns out, is because of this taco strategy. Marketeers, financiers understand that if they just ride it out, just for a month, just for a few weeks, things will go back to normal. Trump will chicken out. We have lost this trade war. It is embarrassing. Trump blustered and moaned about how these countries were taking advantage of us and how he was never going to go back on these tariffs and how tariffs are a good thing. And even if they came to the table, even if they gave us everything we wanted, we wouldn't be going back on these tariffs. And then, of course, we inevitably go back on the tariffs because the truth is these are not healthy for our economy. Targeted, specific tariffs against specific countries and specific industries, that works. Of course, that works. That's why tariffs exist. But sweeping, massive tariffs that you are saying are reciprocal when they're not really, that you are implying are going to be there forever, even if people come to the negotiating table and give us what they want, it just doesn't make any sense. It's not healthy for the market. So the truth is that Trump's rich friends, the people he actually cares about, get into his ear and remind him that if this keeps up, it's going to hurt you financially. And so, you need to stop. And he does. Always. Every single time. So this brave reporter brought up that topic, and it sent Trump into a frenzy, as you could see. An embarrassing frenzy. He's not used to being called names. He's not used to being called out for his illegitimate and embarrassing behavior. Not to his face. He can't really take it. So that's why this even made news at all. If this reporter had mentioned it and he just blew it off like it was nothing, okay, that would have been one thing. But no, he flew off the handle. He started truthing about it. He started, zeeting about it, or whatever you call tweets nowadays. And it turned into a whole debacle of his own making, which is really the tale of his entire presidency. Almost every single problem that he faces, almost every single gaffe and embarrassing situation is entirely of his own making. So I just wanted to briefly touch on that because something tells me this whole taco Trump thing is going to be sticking around for a while. Once you let people know that something like that bothers you, they're going to keep saying it. So speaking of unhinged rants on truth and zeeting things and whatever, Trump basically went on an unhinged rant about his best friend, President Putin. See, it turns out that Trump knew this whole time that Putin wanted to take all of Ukraine. He was the first one who knew. And in fact, here, I'll show you the exact truth that he sent about how he was the one who knew what was going to happen. See, as you can see, Trump is saying that he was the first one to know that Putin actually wanted to take all of Ukraine. That makes a lot of sense because, he wasn't willing to admit that Putin actually started this war, was trying to conquer Ukraine. He kept blaming Zelensky for starting it, but whatever, disregard all of that. He knew, he was the only one who knew Putin actually wanted to take all of Ukraine. Here's the thing. I think anybody who paid any attention at all to international politics or European politics or President Putin at all understood that he wanted to take all of Ukraine. That was not a secret. It wasn't some hidden agenda that he had. It was pretty open-faced. They knew he wanted to take Ukraine. They knew that when he took Crimea. So, first of all, it's just really embarrassing that Trump is pretending like this is some secret knowledge that he had. And that's compounded by the fact that for a very, very long time, and maybe even still, he was pretending that Zelensky started this war, that Putin was, I don't know, firing back from some imagined slight that Zelensky gave him. He never really even explained exactly how Zelensky started the war, but that's what he was saying for so long. Here, take a look.
I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, okay? We're in the middle of talking, and he's shooting rockets into Kiev and other cities. I don't like it at all.
President, what do you want to do about that?
I'm surprised. I'm very surprised. We'll see what we're going to do. What am I going to tell you? You're the fake news, aren't you? You're totally fake. All right, any other questions? I don't like what Putin is doing, not even a little bit. He's killing people. And something happened to this guy, and I don't like it.
See, when he was describing when he started to figure out that Putin maybe wasn't a good guy, the strange thing is he sounded legitimately sad about it. He actually sounded kind of broken up about it, like he was losing a friend. I mean, I cannot fathom exactly how or why Trump didn't understand that Putin is a very bad guy and has been killing civilians for decades. I don't know. I don't know how he missed that. But clearly he did. And he does seem genuinely sad now that he has kind of caught up with the rest of the world and figured out that, yes, Putin is an evil monster. So it's just... it's funny to me in a really frustrating and sad way that it's taken so long for our president to catch up with the rest of us. And by us, I mean literally everybody else in the entire world who has ever been paying attention to this. One thing I wonder, and I'm going to kind of be touching on this later, is what are his followers going to think? Because for the longest time now, he's been really ramping them up about how, Russia, they're really not so bad. This Putin guy gets kind of a bad rap, and, maybe these Ukrainian guys are kind of horrible. Maybe they deserve what's coming to them. So now I really wonder how he's going to walk that back with his followers. He's gotten the Republicans from being, frankly, incredibly anti-Russia back 20 years ago to really cozying up with Russia in serious financial ways. So how is he going to walk that back? I'm very curious to see. Reports are that the European Union has now lifted restrictions on a lot of the weapons that they're sending to Ukraine. They're saying Ukraine can basically use it as they see fit, to the extent that they see fit, even in attacking Russia with counterattacks. Just the other day, very recently, there was an attack that was absolutely devastating on Russia. It destroyed approximately a third of their bombing air force, which is going to be crippling for them. I've heard it referred to as basically the Russian Pearl Harbor. And I think in some ways that's kind of an insulting comparison, because the United States was neutral and got surprise attacked by a country that we weren't fighting at all, whereas Russia basically effed around and found out that maybe they weren't equipped to take on this incredibly small country that they absolutely outgunned and outmanned. I don't exactly love the analogy, but I do understand that this was absolutely crippling to them in the same way that Pearl Harbor was for us for a while. Now, the difference being that Russia does not have the manpower or the factories or anything really to be able to make up for this loss in the same way that we did. So very interested to see what kind of effect that has on the war effort. And I know this is not an international affairs podcast, and I don't think I'll be talking about the Ukrainian war too much, but I just thought it was very interesting that all of a sudden, when Trump has realized that Putin is not such a good guy, Russia undergoes this really horrific loss to their military power. We'll have to see how that goes, but enough of the Ukrainian stuff. We're going to dive back into the tariffs real quick because I want to talk about something that happened just this past week. It was sort of a blip on the radar for a lot of people, but it could be very important. See, the courts actually found that these tariffs that Trump has been implementing were, and this might shock you, illegal and unconstitutional. And I know what you're saying. No way. Trump would never do that. But you know what? It happened. I don't know how. I don't know what happened, but he tried to do something that was illegal and unconstitutional, and so the courts stopped it. The idea is that he declared these national emergencies and said that because of these emergencies, we absolutely have to enact these tariffs. And that's really the only reason he had any theoretical right to unilaterally enact these tariffs on his own without the consent of Congress. Normally speaking, in any presidency, the president has to consult with Congress, has to get their approval. They have to enact the tariffs. It's not something the president can just do on his own. But as with most things in the Trump presidency, he don't like talking to Congress about it. Congress who? I never heard of her. So he just decided to do it on his own, and Congress basically let him because unfortunately, it's run by a bunch of lapdogs right now that really couldn't care less about the Constitution or the laws, and they're totally willing to give up all of their power to Trump in embarrassing fashion. But the courts put a stop to that. Thank goodness. These tariffs were absolutely wrecking our economy, and now, finally, good has triumphed over evil. Actually, no, I'm just kidding, because right after the courts put a stop to them, they gave an injunction and halted the tariffs. Well, that injunction was halted. The Trump administration appealed the injunction, and basically the ruling was that, okay, we're not going to have this injunction. The tariffs are going to keep going on right now, but we are going to look at this, and we will make a full-on ruling down the road about whether or not you are actually allowed to do this or not. But for now, you can keep doing it until we tell you if it's legal or not, which, I mean, I don't know, probably not the route I would have gone, but whatever. The courts are going to do what the courts are going to do. For now, the tariffs are back on the table. But here's the frustrating thing. I mentioned the whole snip, snap, snip, snap. You have no idea the kind of toll that takes on a body. But the issue is that the uncertainty that this leads to the market is not good. I mean, we talked about Taco Trump always chickens out, and how that means that for now, financiers in the market have basically decided that they can kind of just safely ignore the tariffs for the most part, because eventually it's going to go back to normal. And maybe that's true. Maybe the courts will eventually uphold that, yes, these tariffs are illegal and they're going to be stopped for now. But one thing to keep in mind is that Trump still does control Congress, too. So even if the court stops them because he didn't get approval from Congress, he could just get approval from Congress. I mean, that is possible. So these tariffs could come back in full force and with full authority, too. But right now, as they're coming and going and being changed on near daily basis, it seems like, that just leads to more and more uncertainty. And when there is market uncertainty, that means people don't want to invest. People don't want to invest in the United States market right now. People don't want to invest in companies in the United States right now. There are untold amounts of companies that could have been started up in the past few months here in the United States that never were able to get off the ground because they couldn't get funding. Because who knows if a product that is absolutely integral to their full product would be tariffed into oblivion. Who knows if some key component could only be received from some specific country that all of a sudden Trump decided was on his hate list and he decided he needed a tariff. It's just unfortunate. It's not the way that government is supposed to be run. This is not normal. And I guess that's kind of just what I want to highlight with this segment is there's so much stuff going on right now. There's so much uncertainty. There's so much craziness in the world that it starts to feel like this is normal. It starts to feel like this is just how things are now. This is not normal. This is not how things are. This is not how things are supposed to be. And it's not how they're always going to be either. Trump is a unique character. And I think that's the kindest way I can put it. He's the type of guy who does not adhere to any norms or any standards at all. He kind of laughs in the face of decorum. Speaking of him being kind of unhinged and not following decorum or, going back and forth on tariffs and stuff, he also just truthed this out here. As you can see, he's mad at China now. He says China isn't holding up on their end of the bargain. Who could have seen this coming? It's not like I called it out 3 episodes ago, saying that China had absolutely no incentive to follow through on any of the agreements whatsoever because we didn't put any kind of timetable and we didn't put any kind of limitations and we didn't list any kind of consequences. So yes, Trump is now mad that he is the only person in the world who did not see coming that China wouldn't follow through with the verbal agreements that they were talking about. So who knows if we're going to be back up to 145% tariffs or 300% tariffs or 1,000,000,000% tariffs or whatever President Trump decides on that particular moment we're going to get to. And I guess, okay, speaking of lack of decorum, a lack of respect for tradition and policy and stuff, I should probably talk a little bit about his pardon spree that he's been on. This week was kind of unique in that he pardoned a bunch of kind of big name celebrities. And I mean, first of all, just to kind of address the elephant in the room, he pardoned somebody whose mom paid a bunch of money to go to that crypto dinner that I was talking about a couple of episodes ago. Remember, it's that dinner where people had to pay up to millions and millions of dollars to get enough crypto to go meet with the president personally. Well, he just so happened to completely randomly decide to pardon a partygoer's son. Somebody who went to that party, who donated plenty of money to him, and who actually mentioned that in their appeal letter when they were talking about requesting a pardon. They mentioned that they were a big-time donor to Trump. Well, they got their wish, and their son got pardoned. So I don't care exactly where you sit on the political spectrum. That's just not something that should happen. The president should not just be able to pardon somebody because their mom donated millions of dollars to them. That's not how the legal system should work. That's not how democracy should work. That is essentially the definition of an oligarchy. I mean, that is like some Russian stuff for real. Being able to pay millions of dollars to the president and suddenly get your family member pardoned. Like, there's no defense for that. There's not. It's not a coincidence. It's not just a random happenstance. This dinner happened where this particular person paid an unknown amount of money, up to millions and millions of dollars, to be able to meet with the president personally. And then very suddenly afterwards, their son gets pardoned. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that there's something fishy going on here. For all of you people who talk about drain the swamp and let's get rid of the deep state and stuff, what do you call that? Because to me, it smells kind of swampy, but maybe you have another definition. I would love to hear from you below. Please let me know how this is okay. Aside from that one particular pardon, I also just wanted to kind of dive into his history with pardons in general. I mean, yes, this week he pardoned some, famous TV couple who committed like $50 million in tax fraud and were very vocal Trump supporters. And so he decided to pardon them for, I don't know, basically no reason. And that's kind of the case with most of these pardons is it's going to be people who were Trump supporters and who were vocal about supporting him. And he really gave no other reason other than just saying like, yeah, I think we were harsh on these guys, or yeah, I looked at the case and it's kind of fishy. It never really gives any detail. Millions and millions and millions of dollars. So if that's not waste or fraud or abuse, I don't know what is. That's the most clear-cut case of it you could possibly get, is people who are literally going to jail for stealing $50 million from the United States. But I also want to talk about something in particular, which is the January 6th pardons. See, he kind of made history by pardoning like 1,500 people in one day. That was big. And I know before Republicans have kind of complained about past presidents sort of abusing the pardon power. And when Biden was leaving office and he pardoned, members of his own family and his cabinet and stuff like that, I took umbrage with that. I was not a big fan of that. Now, it turns out that actually turned out to be a good idea, because Trump was pretty vocal about the fact that he absolutely would have gone after those people and tried to convict them on trumped up charges, thanks to one Kash Patel, director of the FBI. So in hindsight, my bad, man. I'm sorry. It turns out, yeah, you're right. You were kind of forced into doing something that I didn't really like and that I thought was a really bad look for you and your legacy. Sorry, President Biden. It's on me. You were right. You absolutely should have pardoned your son and your family and, all of these people, Fauci and all these people who worked for your administration, because Trump has shown by writing executive orders targeting specific individuals and by going after law firms that he's going after purely for disagreeing with him and hiring people that worked in other administrations, that he's not above lawfare in the truest and realest sense, in the deep state KGB kicking down your door sense. So, yeah. My bad on that. But anyway, back to this whole January 6th thing. I was looking at some of the numbers, and it is astounding how many of the people he pardoned by doing a blanket pardon of everybody convicted of some kind of January 6th crime that have now wound up back in jail for either committing violence against people or committing truly heinous crimes that I won't even talk about to women and children. Like, look at the numbers. And again, I don't want to dive too deep into it because I don't even think you're really supposed to be talking about that stuff on YouTube, but it's bad. And I'm going to post a link below to an article that really kind of goes into detail on these guys. But the point is, Trump had the opportunity to, if he truly believed that these people were being over convicted or being, arrested on trumped up charges or whatever, which, by the way, they weren't. And January 6th was heinous, and everybody who went to jail absolutely had it coming. Even if he believed that, he had the responsibility to go through case by case and find out, okay, which of these people are actual bad guys, like guys who are, beating up cops and pepper spraying cops in the face and, threatening cops and like hurting people badly, and which of these people were just kind of, following orders and showing up to the January 6th riot and, didn't know any better. He had that responsibility, and he just gave up on that because, frankly, he was too lazy. He said it was too hard. He literally, there is a report that he was looking over the list of people and it was coming down to the wire because he really wanted to make sure he did these pardons on the day he was inaugurated, because that's just who he is. He's a TV guy, he's an actor, and he likes to be able to do these things in a really flashy style. So he was going through the list, it was coming down to the wire, and he literally said, fuck it. Just pardon them all. That's what the reports say. He actually just said, F it, pardon them all, because he didn't want to go through the time and effort to look at a case-by-case basis. And because of that, he pardoned people who are in jail right now for committing terrible, terrible crimes against women and children. I mean, it's just ludicrous. I don't understand how you can look at that. How you can look at that guy and say, yeah, that guy's all about law and order. That's the guy who's going to be tough on crime. I mean, are you kidding me? He's acting like a mob boss right now. He's giving out favors to people who give him money. He's pardoning family members to people who buy his crypto coin. He's saying, if you're a thug and you go beat people up, but you do it for me, you're free to go. That's not how a democracy works. That's not how rule of law works. And if he's allowed to continue doing this, our democracy is going to crumble. I mean, can you imagine if he's allowed to continue being president for 4 years, how much damage and pain he's going to cause to people, how much thuggery he's going to enable, and then pardon right at the last minute. I mean, that's actually the bad guys winning. That's doing bad things and then getting away with it. So I'm just kind of planting the seeds right now. Obviously, nothing can happen right now, but these midterms are going to be the most important midterms that have ever happened in my life. And I really hope you guys go out there and vote, because that is the only way that this guy is going to actually suffer any kind of consequences for his crimes, is by being impeached. And that's only going to happen if these midterms turn into a blue wave the way a lot of people thought they were going to a few years ago. Okay, but enough of my soapboxing about the midterms. I'm sure I'm going to be talking about that plenty in the future. Next, I want to talk about some juicy Gossip Girl stuff going on, because, ooh, Lord, Elon Musk is exiting the White House, and yeah, it's not in the most friendly terms. So we all kind of heard about what happened between Elon Musk and Scott Bessent a few weeks ago, back when he literally got in a fight with Scott Bessent because Scott Bessent was calling Elon Musk out for not doing anything close to what he promised as far as cutting from the budget. Elon Musk got up in his face and shoved him, and it became an actual physical altercation. And actually, Donald Trump ended up taking Scott Bessent's side. And I kind of feel like that's where the big divide between Elon Musk and Donald Trump really started. But that's not even close to what's been going on now. So, first of all, Elon Musk has a black eye now. And here's a little clip of him explaining how he got it.
I wanted to ask quickly, Mr. Musk, what is your eye okay? What happened to your eye? I noticed there's a bruise there.
Well, it wasn't. I wasn't anywhere near France, so.
What does that mean?
No.
I didn't notice it.
First lady of France.
Getting slapped,
I didn't notice.
So yeah, no, I was just horsing around with little X, and I said, "Go ahead, punch me in the face," and he did. Turns out, even a 5-year-old punching you in the face actually does.
That was accident?
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, I don't actually think his 5-year-old punched him in the eye. But I mean, okay, just taking at face value for a second. Why would he ask his kid to punch him in the face? That's just such a weird explanation. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, okay, there's been a lot of rumors about his drug use and stuff like that, and I'm going to dive into that in just a second, but I feel like that's the only explanation for why he would be asking his kid to punch him in the face, as if he was on some kind of like drug bender. But regardless, I don't think that's what actually happened. See, take note that Elon Musk's black eye is on his right eye, and that's important because one of Elon Musk's biggest opponents right now is, drumroll please, Stephen Miller. And I know you guys know I love talking about Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller is left-handed. So if Stephen Miller was going to throw a punch at somebody's face, it would be on their right eye. But why in the world would Stephen Miller be wanting to punch Elon Musk in the face? So, first of all, please note, Stephen Miller is married. He has a wife. They have a few kids together. I think they got married during the tail end of Trump's first presidency. Now, Stephen Miller's wife, Katie Miller, has actually been serving as an advisor to Doge since Elon Musk has joined in this wonderful administration. Now, reports are that Stephen Miller went around kind of bragging about how essentially he was controlling Doge because his wife had such an important advisory position on the Doge Council, and how basically he was kind of essentially whispering in Musk's ear this whole time and letting him know what he should be doing, what he should be cutting, stuff like that. The idea is that he kind of used his wife as basically like a honeypot trap to entice Musk into listening to what Stephen Miller wanted to do. Now that Elon Musk is leaving, he's taking Stephen Miller's wife with him. Now, there are wild and unsubstantiated rumors that Stephen Miller and Elon Musk and Katie Miller were in some kind of really weird and strange throuple scenario. And I'm not going to dive into that because those are unsubstantiated rumors and it wouldn't be professional. But I will say that Stephen Miller doesn't seem to be entirely happy that his wife is leaving to go work with Elon Musk now that Elon Musk is leaving. And now that Elon Musk and Stephen Miller have been openly feuding on Twitter, while Elon Musk is talking about how, horrible and wasteful this big, beautiful bill is, and Stephen Miller's taking potshots at Elon Musk, I will say that it would make some sense if they got into a physical altercation while all of this was going down, especially if there are personal entanglements that seem to be getting in the way of things. Frankly, in this timeline, in this day and age, where absolute insanity is going on all around us at all times, I kind of find that more likely than Elon Musk asking his 5-year-old to punch him in the face. Let's talk about some alternative options that might have led to Elon Musk having that black eye. Reporting has just come out from the New York Times that Elon Musk was on a lot more drugs than he admitted. A while ago, he talked about how he actually took ketamine kind of irregularly as a cure for his depression. There are apparently some options that you can have to take ketamine kind of very, very infrequently and in small doses, and that supposedly helps you combat your depression. I don't really know anything about it. I think maybe being high on ketamine would probably make you not depressed, but that's all I know. Now, reports are coming out that actually Elon Musk was doing drugs pretty heavily every day, and that he supposedly had a box of like 20 pills that he carried around with him at all times, including things like Adderall and like psychedelic mushrooms and, yes, ketamine. Now, supposedly, he actually confided into some of his closer associates that he was taking so much ketamine so frequently that he was actually experiencing incontinence, like his bladder was failing. And he was urinating on himself at times because he was taking so much ketamine. So first of all, that's got to be kind of a gut punch if you are confiding in your close associates that you're having serious medical problems because of your drug use. And the first thing they do is take pictures to the New York Times of your drug box and start bragging about it. But second of all, if you're doing drugs so frequently, that would also explain how you might start showing up with like crazy bruises on your face. I mean, when you're showing up with bruises and you don't really remember how you got them and you're kind of looking all loopy in meetings and kind of staring off into space, that's the point where you need some help, like serious help. So I'm not trying to make light of this issue. I understand that substance abuse is a terrible, terrible disease, that people are frequently not nearly as empathetic as they should be to people who are going through it. But on the other hand, Elon Musk is also somebody who was advocating for drug testing for people who were going to be receiving welfare and insisted on drug testing all of his employees. And federal employees are also supposed to undergo drug testing when they get a job. So it's kind of hard to be incredibly empathetic to this guy who was probably doing drugs while he was doing his job and may very well have ended up costing untold numbers of people their lives. And actually, I kind of want to get into that next, because aside from all of the juicy gossip and the crazy Stephen Miller wife stealing shenanigans and whatever, I actually want to talk about what Doge ended up accomplishing while Elon Musk was driving it. He's leaving now. Doge supposedly is going to continue existing without him. We'll see if it actually has any teeth and is able to accomplish anything. But he made a big impact while he was doing his thing. And I wanted to break it down for you. So initially, Elon Musk claimed that he was going to be trying to cut like $2 trillion in federal spending, which basically anybody who understands anything about the government or the government budget understood that that just was never going to happen. That was very clearly a number he just kind of picked out of thin air and just ran with. And he didn't know what he was getting into whatsoever. And that's very clear by the claims he was making. Well, fairly soon after that, and once he actually started looking into the issue at all, he realized that $2 trillion was just not possible. That was just absolutely not going to happen in any way on this earth whatsoever. So he narrowed down his claim to $1 trillion, which also was an incredibly lofty goal that was absolutely never going to happen, but that's what the stated goal was. So at the end of the day, at the end of Elon Musk's tenure, Doge claims that they have cut $170 billion from the budget, which if you are going off of what they said they wanted to cut initially, that's about 8.5%. So I'm sorry to say that's an F. You didn't pass. But let's take a look at that 170 billion, because honestly, even that number I think is pretty high. I don't think they actually saved nearly that much money, because in that $170 billion, first of all, a lot of it they don't even really attribute to anything. They just are saying that number, and then they're listing cuts that they made, and that just doesn't add up to 170 billion. But if you take what they're saying at face value, $170 billion, keep in mind that that number is including contracts that were already canceled before Doge even started. They're just throwing that number in because it makes them look better. That's also including mistypes and errors that they made. For example, they entered in something as an $8 billion savings when it was actually an $8 million savings, which is a huge difference. I mean, the difference between $1 million and $1 billion is basically $1 billion. So saying that you cut 8 billion versus 8 million is worlds and worlds and worlds apart. Then that's not including the fact that they lost a bunch of money through essentially wasted labor. They started firing people and sending people home and putting people on paid leave where they were getting paid for doing absolutely nothing. And that was part of the strategy. They wanted to get these people on paid leave and then eventually fire them. But a lot of that ended up backfiring. People that they put on paid leave, they ended up having to just bring back. Even many people that they ended up firing, they actually had to rehire. Some of it was deemed illegal at the time. Some of it is going to be deemed illegal in the future and is going through the court system right now. And some of it was just they realized, oh my gosh, this is a horrible mistake. We have to rehire them back immediately. And that costs money. It costs money to hire people. It costs more money to hire people than if you had just kept them to begin with. And then there's the fact that they have to spend all of this time and all of this money on lawyers and fighting in the court system and, trying to get through all of this, frankly, illegal work that they're doing. So that also costs hundreds of millions and, potentially billions of dollars, because lawyers ain't cheap. And that's still ongoing. So again, that's a cost that is going to keep rising as time goes on. And then that also doesn't even count the amount of waste that came from this. There are reports about warehouses and warehouses full of food that basically is just going to rot away and turn into garbage. The food is already there and ready to be passed out, but they fired the people that are going to be passing out the food when they cut out USAID. So USAID ended. The food was already purchased. It was already contracted and existed. You can't just return the food. So instead of passing out the food to people and spending a little tiny bit of money to make sure that it got to where it needed to go, they just cut it all out and let it all go to waste. And estimates are that could have fed millions of people for like 3 months. So again, I mean, did it save some money firing the people that were going to be, handling the logistics of getting the food to where it needed to go? Sure, yeah. Did it probably waste more money than it saved because that food ended up rotting away and being turned into garbage? Yeah, definitely. And people absolutely got hurt because of that too. I mean, there are countries that have millions and millions of people on the brink of starvation, where that one meal could make the difference between literal life and death. So for Elon Musk to claim that absolutely nobody got hurt by any of the cuts that he made is first of all, just ludicrous. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. We cut medical aid, we cut food aid, we cut research. All of that has a toll, not just in money, but in human lives. And second of all, it just sounds like somebody who's so out of touch, so unaware of the consequences of their actions that I don't know why we ever trusted that guy. Why would you trust somebody who has no concept of their actions having real world consequences, real toll on life and health? To make these cuts, to take a chainsaw to our US budget. It makes no sense at all. So at the end of the day, in my research, I saw that we basically spent about $130 billion to cut $170 billion. So at the end of the day, my rough napkin math says Doge essentially saved us like $40 billion. And in exchange, we lost all of our soft power across the entire globe because we cut out all foreign aid. We lost untold amounts of research because we stopped researching cures for terrible diseases that are ravaging other countries and one day could ravage ours too. And we lost an untold number of lives. So was it worth it? No. It's going to be a stain on our nation's history. It's going to be an embarrassing event that we look at in shame. And it's going to be something that people like Elon Musk and all of his supporters and all of Trump's supporters are going to have to look back on and wonder what they could have done differently. If they had just made a better, more thoughtful, more kind, more intelligent choice. Could we have saved money in a logical way, in a lawful way? By changing the budget through congressional means, how it's supposed to be changed. Yes, absolutely. And we wouldn't have lost so many lives. And we wouldn't have lost so much respect from the international community either. So, RIP Doge, RIP Elon Musk's tenure as a special appointment of the US government. You didn't do much good. You did a lot of bad. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. So, one thing I want to cover real quick before I dive into the social issues is there's something that's been on my mind for a few episodes now, and I actually had a commenter reach out about this too, that I'd like to talk more about positive news. And unfortunately, a lot of news that's going on right now is just not positive. It's kind of hard to find silver linings sometimes when there's so much darkness around, but I have been doing some research on something really interesting that could be coming down the pike, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Regular viewers may remember that I have before talked about a general strike, and it's something that is frequently brought up when people are talking about workers' rights and how to enact sweeping change. And I know a comment that I get on almost every episode on many shorts that I post is, hey, I agree this is all really messed up and horrible. How do we fix it? And unfortunately, usually my answer is kind of throwing my hands up in the air and saying, show up for midterms. Make sure you write your local congressman and your senator and you let them know what you think. And if enough people did that, I do truly believe that that would cause some change right now, and that will cause some change in the midterms. But there's something coming down the pike in 2028 that could fix everything in a huge way. And that's a general strike. Now, the history of general strikes is kind of checkered in some ways. First of all, it is actually illegal to organize a general strike. And if you think that that's kind of heinous and sounds really like it's antithetical to what the Constitution upholds with freedom of speech and freedom of association, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's really awful. And I think it's one of the reasons that America, even though we are one of the richest and most powerful nations in the world, has some of the absolute worst workers' rights of any developed nation in the world. I mean, I talked to a lot of friends in Europe and across the globe. And I've asked them before about, hey, why don't you want to come over to America and get a job here? And the answer is always the same. They know what it's like working in America, and it is horrible. See, in America, you are basically lucky if you get a paid lunch break. You are lucky if you get a lunch break at all in some states. Many states don't require any kind of a break whatsoever. You can work for 12 hours and get a 30-minute unpaid lunch break. I've done that myself. In almost every single state, it's an at-will state, meaning they can fire you for almost any reason or no reason at all, which is usually the route that they go. Even if they're firing you for a constitutionally protected reason, they'll just say it's for no reason. It's just because. And they can do that. When it comes to paid leave, America is so far behind other countries. I mean, it's only very recently that paternity leave has become a thing at all whatsoever. In the past, there was only maternity leave for mothers who were giving birth, and it was limited. And frequently it was not paid or not paid very well at all. We do have FMLA in this country, which is fine. But essentially, that just guarantees that you won't get fired if you have some kind of change in circumstance, but you're not getting paid for it. And I've already talked about how many people are simply a paycheck away, maybe two, from being on the street. So I don't know how many people can really afford to take FMLA for 6 months while their child is born. But I know in countries like Germany, for example, parents get 2 years of paid leave to be there for their children when they're born. That's something that in the greatest nation on earth, in the richest and most powerful nation on earth, you'd think we would be entitled to. And that's part of my issue with, by the way, and I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but people talking about, having an issue with welfare, having an issue with social programs or whatever. Every other country in the world, every other developed country has been able to figure out how to offer universal health care, how to have social welfare programs, how to ensure that they don't have a homelessness epidemic, how to ensure that they don't have people going bankrupt because they have a medical issue. So why is it that we, in the supposedly most powerful, greatest, most amazing, and richest nation on earth, struggle with this? It's embarrassing. And the United States consistently ranks low in terms of standards of living, in terms of happiness. We rank high in terms of violent crime, in terms of preventable deaths. The United States, in some ways, is a third world country masquerading as a first world country. And it truly is embarrassing. But again, I'm sorry. I'm kind of going off the rails, and I said this was going to be a positive segment, and it is. Because while organizing a general strike is actually illegal, unions have found a way around this, and it's pretty interesting. See, a few of the largest unions in the United States have negotiated their contracts to run out on May 1st, 2028, May Day. And other unions are going to be having their contracts renegotiated soon. And the idea is that they are also going to try and have their contracts run out on the same day. So while there may not be a technical general strike being organized on that day, wink, wink, if everybody agrees that they're not signing a new contract until certain demands are met, that is effectively the same thing. Now, one of the issues is that union workers don't make up the majority of workers in America because, frankly, politicians have found out that unions make for extremely strong movements, and unions ensure high wages. They ensure access to health care. And unions can be powerful if they have a lot of members. So politicians have done everything they can to weaken unions. So it's up to everybody else now. The unions can organize and decide that they're going to have their contracts run out on May 1st, 2028. Everybody else now needs to decide if they're going to join in. And again, you can't necessarily organize a general strike with everybody around you, but you can make that personal decision. And you can decide if you are going to join in the movement. Because if enough voices get together, we can show them that they may have the money, they may have the power, but we have the numbers. And when you have the numbers, you can accomplish anything. All right. So that's enough of my kind of hopeful, positive news, if you could call it that. Now there is something that just has really been grinding my gears that I have just got to talk with you guys about. Call it giving into the trolls, call it whatever you want, but it's a problem. And it's something that needs to be addressed. I started content creation in January of this year. And for the vast majority of this channel, it has been talking about politics. Politics is a very divisive topic, and it brings out, in some ways, the worst in people. And I have seen that in my comment section. Nearly every single short that I post on TikTok regularly as well, and I've seen it even more so there. I will have trolls showing up in my comments and posting things like this. And these kind of comments are on, like I said, the vast majority of my videos. And it pretty much always boils down to somebody either insulting my appearance or just saying some generally mean thing like, you're a douchebag. Or just saying, you're lying, or this is bad information, or you're spreading misinformation, or you're fear-mongering, or whatever. But the point is, it's like these drive-by comments where people are not offering any kind of serious input or criticism. They're not offering any kind of arguments or refutations. They're just basically saying, I don't believe you. And in general, I honestly try to approach all of these in good faith. I mean, okay, if you're just going to call me a name, I'll probably just banter back at you. I'll say something silly because I know you're clearly not here for any kind of a discussion. But for the most part, if somebody is accusing me of lying or accusing me of, misinformation or misrepresenting something or whatever, especially if they're doing it in a not, overly insulting way, I will try and engage them. And I will say, please let me know what it is exactly that you think I'm wrong about or whatever. I'll be happy to post sources for you. I'll be happy to talk back and forth if you think I'm misinterpreting something. And almost every single time, I would say in over 90% of cases, I get back either just an insult, calling me fat or whatever, or I'll get back people just doubling down on saying I'm a liar, or most commonly, honestly, I'll just get crickets. It's nothing at all. They just don't answer anymore. I wanted to talk about this kind of internet culture, I guess, of trolling in the comments section, or just more generally speaking, discussions in bad faith. And I say that because I know this isn't something that you only see online. I know it's something that you don't only see in comment sections. I have tried to have discussions with people about politics in person, in chat rooms, in various locations, and it almost always ends up the same way. I'm willing to discuss whatever until both of our faces turn blue. I'm willing to cite sources, and I'm willing to show examples. If it's philosophy we disagree on, I'm willing to talk about the merits of your views versus mine. And I'm persuadable. I have mentioned before that I used to be very conservative, and I have definitely shifted to be much more moderate now. And yes, a lot of that is because conservatism has really shifted more and more to the right, but some of that is because I genuinely have shifted more and more to the left because of persuasive arguments. But when people show up and try and have a discussion in bad faith, it really bothers me, because I'm not sure if they're just trying to be funny or if they just are trying to frustrate me or other people who just don't have the same beliefs as them. But I think that basically is the biggest problem in our country, is people being unwilling to have logical discussions about things. And that goes for basically everything, not just politics, but in any issue. This even goes for friendships, relationships, anything you can think of. The solution 99% of the time is going to be just open and honest communication. I know personally, in my own relationship, every single one of our problems has always been able to be solved with open and honest communication. And if for any of our problems, one of us showed up and just said, "You're a liar," and then left, or "You're a douchebag," and then stopped responding, well, that would lead to a breakdown in our relationship. And unfortunately, that has led to a breakdown in our culture's relationship. That's why we are having this big cultural divide right now between Trump supporters and basically everybody else. Because Trump supporters in general seem to be very willing to put themselves out there as Trump supporters, and then absolutely unwilling to defend any of their ideals whatsoever. And I'm telling you, this is not a one-off issue. You can look through my comment section. I invite you to please look through my shorts. You will see hundreds of comments where people have said just frankly disrespectful, inappropriate, and rude things, where people have accused me of lying outright. And I'm telling you, almost every single one of them, I have responded back and asked for any kind of evidence, any kind of proof. I've asked them what they think I'm not telling the truth on, and I'm willing to share sources, and it's just nothing whatsoever. So I don't understand how these people think that they're going to be successful in life, how they think they're going to bring anybody over to their side, how they think they're going to have any kind of meaningful relationships with people if they're not willing to even have a conversation, if they're not willing to share their ideals at all. I mean, they're willing to show up and bash you. They're willing to call you a liar or whatever, but then the second you give any kind of a pushback at all, it's like they just crumble. And I know for a long time, the right talked about how the left is full of snowflakes and, facts don't care about your feelings and stuff like that. But that's not what I'm seeing lately. On the left, people are coming out and they're willing to have conversations. And after a frankly embarrassing election, they did a lot of introspection and they figured out some of the things that they were doing as a party that were leading to alienating huge groups of people and led to really embarrassing losses, even in fairly safe districts. But that's not happening on the right. And take it as a friendly word of advice if you want, but if you keep going down this path, What happened to the Democrats last election is going to happen to you because you're going to be out of touch and you're going to not understand why people hate you. And I'm telling you, it's because of stuff like this, where you show up and you are unwilling to have any kind of a conversation. You're unwilling to defend your ideals whatsoever. You're unwilling to rely on facts and logic, and instead you're just talking about your feelings. The number of people who show up in my comments section and tell me how they feel like the Constitution should not apply to people who are here illegally is mind-blowing. Because, okay, you can feel like that. That's fine. It really doesn't change the facts that the Constitution does apply to all persons in this country. It just does. The Supreme Court has ruled as such for 100 years. The Constitution itself says that. So you can feel like it doesn't, but that doesn't matter. Facts don't care about your feelings. They just don't. And I understand, like, something a lot of people are going to fall back on is, oh, I'm just trolling. I'm just trolling, doing a little trolling. Like it's some kind of like cute behavior to troll when you're a grown adult. I understand the whole appeal of being a class clown. Okay. I was kind of a class clown growing up. I wanted to make people laugh. And it was because I was desperately self-conscious and I had a horrible self-esteem. And of course I grew up and I'm an adult now and I don't have the desire to act like a clown at all times and to make a fool of myself just to get a cheap laugh. So I don't understand why grown adults feel the need to go trolling in comment sections for a cheap laugh now. Is it because you have a horrible self-esteem? Is it because you just don't know any better? I'm genuinely curious. So if you are somebody who loves to participate in trolling, and I don't even know why I'm asking, but I would love to hear from you. Please let me know, what is the appeal for you? Because it doesn't add anything to the discussion. It doesn't add anything to, the only thing it does is push people away from you. And I assume you know that already. I assume that's obvious, but just in case you don't know, when you troll around and you just pretend to act stupid, it doesn't make you appealing to anybody. People don't want to be like that. They are laughing at you. They're not laughing with you. They're laughing at you. And okay, sure, maybe it's funny to make people you don't like angry. I don't personally think so, but maybe that's what you think. But is it worth sacrificing your own intellectual integrity? I mean, you're not hurting anybody but yourself by doing that. And it's kind of embarrassing. I mean, honestly, it's not even kind of embarrassing. I mean, think about it. Would you want your comments to be seen by the people that you know in real life? Honestly, if you're showing up in comment sections and just insulting people's appearances or calling people names or whatever, how would you feel if suddenly your comments were shown to your boss, your spouse, your kids, your friends? If you would be embarrassed to have those come to light, you need to seriously reconsider your persona that you're projecting online. Eventually, you become who you pretend to be. You can pretend that you're just being stupid for fun. You can pretend that you're just saying these inflammatory, terrible things for a laugh, but at some point, it's not really pretending anymore. That's just who you are. And if you don't want to be that person, then you really shouldn't act that way. I guess I just want to clarify, like, I'm not saying every single person who voted for Trump is like this, okay? I think there is a big difference between people who maybe begrudgingly voted for Trump because they just thought that he would do a better job than Kamala, or because Kamala ran such a terrible campaign and she basically said she wasn't going to do anything differently than Biden, and maybe things during the Biden administration didn't go your way. And maybe you thought, I got to vote for the other guy. I'm going to vote for Trump. I think there's a big difference between people like that and people who put up Trump flags. Like, Trump 2024, Trump 2028. Like, what is wrong with you? And again, I assume this goes back to the whole trolling thing, but like, I've had a number of people comment talking about Trump 2028. Yeah. I really wonder, like, do they just not understand that that's illegal? Do they just not care and they just love breaking the law, or are they just like pretending to be stupid? Are they pretending to be bad people for fun? I don't know. And at the end of the day, I guess I don't know if it really matters anymore. I want to reach out to people that I don't agree with. I want to have meaningful conversations. I want to persuade, and I want to be persuadable. I don't want to cloak myself in an iron curtain of my own ideals and scream into an echo chamber of my own making. I don't want that. I don't want other people to want that for themselves. That's why I have serious concerns about things like Facebook groups and, subreddits and stuff like that, where people online can just exclusively go to groups where they can only interact with people who already agree with them about everything. And so the only thing they're doing is just talking to other people who are just going to agree with them more, and they're going to agree with what the other people are saying. And it's just this constant echo chamber of self-gratification and just agreeing with each other, patting each other on the back, until you start to lose sight of the reality that is, there is a diverse set of opinions. There is a diverse set of ideals in this world. And it's worthwhile to get a glimpse at that, to understand if maybe you've got a blind spot, if maybe you're not comprehending the whole picture. I desperately want to be able to reach other people. I desperately want that. That's why I made this channel. Because right now YouTube is flooded with ultra right-wing people, with conspiracy theorists who are embracing dangerous ideologies that get people hurt. And then on the other side, on the left, you've got people who are embracing crazy ideals and eschewing traditionalism to the point of insanity, where they don't care if they're making people uncomfortable. I don't want that. I just want to have meaningful conversations. I just want to meet people where they're at and have a real talk with them. And people on the left, I've been able to. And I have talks with them on a very regular basis. And we disagree, sometimes fervently, but we always talk it out. And at the end of the day, we don't always come to an agreement. I'm going to have my opinions, they're going to have theirs, and sometimes they're not going to match, and that's fine. But I have met very, very scarce few people on the right who are even willing to talk anymore. It's like they're so frightened of hearing any idea that doesn't match up with their worldview. Like they're so scared that their ideology will crumble with a simple touch that they're just not willing to talk anymore. And I think it's tragic. And I truly worry about the future of our country if this cultural divide cannot be bridged. So in the comments section below, please let me know. Have you run into this problem? Are you able to have these conversations? Are you able to speak with people that you don't agree with? Have you ever been able to come eye to eye with somebody who maybe sits on the opposite political spectrum as you? Give me some hope. I want to hear some stories about people meeting up and talking and disagreeing civilly. Let me know that that's still possible. Thank you so much for watching this lucky episode number 13 of Awakening the Ordinary. It is always an honor to have you. I'd love to hear from every single one of you, whether I agree with you or not. I always promise to have a civil discussion if you'd like. You can hit us up in the Discord. We actually had some good talks going in there just the other day about immigration and possible paths forward. And of course, I've got all my other links below as well if you want to see shorts that I post to TikTok and that sort of thing. Thank you again for joining us. And remember, when you change your perspective, the reality changes. I'll see you soon.